Your phone buzzes, you see their name, and your heart just sinks. It's not excitement you feel, it's a cold, creeping dread. Your pulse speeds up, your shoulders get tight. You're not getting ready for a conversation, you're bracing for impact. Before you even answer, you're already running through a dozen different scenarios. What kind of mood are they in? What did I do wrong this time? How can I say hello in a way that won't set them off? This is the feeling, this is the exhaustion, this is that silent, suffocating experience of walking on eggshells. Every conversation feels like you're navigating a minefield. Every interaction is a high-stakes negotiation with someone else's unpredictable emotions. You find yourself constantly editing your words, second-guessing your actions, and shrinking your own personality just to avoid an outburst, a guilt trip, or the dreaded silent treatment. You're tired. You're just so tired of being the designated emotional shock absorber for your partner, your parent, your friend, or even your boss. This constant state of high alert has a cost. It chips away at your peace, your confidence, and your very sense of who you are. But what if I told you there's a way out? Not by changing them, because let's be real, you can't, but by changing the very ground you stand on. What if you could build something inside of you so strong, so resilient, that their emotional storms could rage all they want, but they couldn't touch your inner calm? What if you could build an unbreakable inner fortress? This isn't just a nice idea. This is the promise of an ancient philosophy, born out of chaos and uncertainty, called Stoicism. And today we're going to learn how to use its powerful tools to stop walking on eggshells and start walking in freedom. Before we can build our fortress, we have to get a clear picture of the prison we're in. Walking on eggshells is more than just a saying. It's a psychological state of chronic anxiety, all driven by the fear of someone else's negative reaction. It's a huge red flag for an unhealthy, often toxic dynamic where open and honest communication has become impossible. You end up in a state of constant self-censorship, carefully monitoring every word and action to prevent a fight or an emotional explosion. The trap is subtle, but it's incredibly effective. Over time, you start to believe a lie, that you are responsible for their feelings. Their anger becomes your fault. Their sadness is your problem to solve. Their disappointment is a direct reflection of your failure. This is the core engine of emotional manipulation. Sometimes it's obvious, like when they say, "You made me feel this way." Other times it's more sneaky, like gaslighting that makes you question your own sanity. But the result is the same. You're slowly trained to believe that your main job is to manage their emotional state. Think about how this actually shows up in your life. It's the partner who flies into a jealous rage if you don't text back in 5 minutes, making you anxious every time you put your phone down. It's the parent who sighs heavily and says, "Ugh, don't worry about me, I'll be fine," when you try to set a boundary, wrapping you in a thick blanket of guilt. It's the friend whose bad mood can suck all the oxygen out of a room, forcing everyone to walk on, well, eggshells. It's the boss whose unpredictable temper makes you terrified to ask a simple question. In every case, your focus shifts from your own well-being to their emotional needs. You become a human weather vane, constantly scanning their face, their tone, their body language for any sign of a coming storm. This isn't just mentally exhausting. It messes with you physically and psychologically. It floods your body with stress hormones, messes up your sleep, and can lead to serious anxiety and depression. You lose touch with what you need, what you think, and what brings you joy. You start to feel like a ghost in your own life. This is where Stoicism comes in, not as a way to become a cold, unfeeling robot, but as a practical guide to taking back your emotional independence. Stoicism teaches that while we can't control the wild, unpredictable storms of other people's feelings, we can build a shelter so strong that we can stay safe and dry inside. It's about building an inner citadel, a fortress of the mind, where you can deal with the world from a place of strength, reason, and peace. This fortress isn't built overnight. It's built brick by brick. In each brick is a core Stoic idea, and the very first, most important cornerstone we have to lay is the one that draws a clear line between their world and yours. The first and most important principle in all of Stoicism is called the Dichotomy of Control. The philosopher Epictetus, who was born a slave and became one of the most respected teachers in the Roman Empire, said it best: "Some things are within our power, while others are not." This one simple sentence is the key that unlocks the prison. It sounds obvious, right? But truly letting it sink in can radically change your life. So much of our anxiety and frustration comes from getting these two categories mixed up. From trying to control things we can't and ignoring the things we can. Let's break this down. For a difficult relationship, what is not in your control? Honestly, the list is huge. You can't control another person's past, all the stuff that shaped their triggers and insecurities. You can't control their mood on any given day. You can't control how they interpret your words. They'll always hear them through their own filters. You can't control their expectations. And most of all, you absolutely cannot control their emotional reaction. Their anger, their sadness, their jealousy, those are internal events happening inside their head. Trying to control them is like trying to command the wind. It's a recipe for burnout and failure. What is in your control? This list is shorter, but it's infinitely more powerful. You control your own judgments. You control your intentions. You control your choice of words and your tone of voice. You control your actions, whether you engage, walk away, or set a boundary. You control how you respond to your own feelings. You control the values you choose to live by. This is where your true power is. The person walking on eggshells has this completely backward. They pour all their energy into the uncontrollable, trying to manage the other person's mood, while ignoring what they can control, their own calm, rational response. The Stoic path is to flip this script entirely. Let's make this real. Imagine you live with a family member who's super critical. You've just cleaned the entire kitchen and you're feeling pretty good about it. They walk in, and the first thing they say is, "You missed a spot." The eggshell walkers approach. Your stomach drops. You immediately think, "I can never do anything right. Why are they always so negative? I work so hard and they don't even care." You feel that sting of defensiveness and hurt. You might snap back, "I just cleaned the whole kitchen, can't you see that?" Or maybe you say nothing, but you retreat into a resentful silence, and your whole day is ruined. You've just let their words dictate your inner peace. You've let them hand you their negativity, and you've taken it. The Stoics approach. You hear the words, "You missed a spot." You pause, you take a breath, and you apply the dichotomy of control. First, you see what's not in your control: their critical personality, their need to find something wrong, their words, their perception of the kitchen. That's their stuff. It's external. Second, you focus on what is in your control: your judgment about their words, your emotional response, your next action. Instead of judging their comment as an attack on me, you can choose to see it for what it is. They have observed a small, unclean area on the counter. That's it. It's just a piece of data. Their critical tone is their problem, not yours. Now you get to choose your response from a place of power, not reactivity. You have options. You could say, calmly and without any sarcasm, "You're right, thanks for catching that," and just wipe the spot. This shows that their criticism has no emotional power over you. You could set a gentle boundary. "I appreciate you noticing the details. It would mean a lot to me if you could also see the work I did on the rest of the kitchen." Or you could even see it as a chance for compassion, realizing that their need to criticize might just come from their own unhappiness. In every one of those options, you've protected your inner peace. Their comment was a rock thrown at your fortress and it just bounced off. You refused to let their external negativity become your internal suffering. This isn't about bottling up your feelings. It's about choosing not to create destructive ones based on bad judgments. You're free because you've put your focus on the only thing you truly command: your own mind. This is the first, most solid brick in your fortress. So you've laid the foundation with the dichotomy of control. Now it's time to build the watchtower. This is the part of your inner fortress where you can look out, see potential trouble coming, and get ready for it long before it shows up. In Stoicism, this mental prep is a powerful exercise called premeditatio malorum, which basically means the premeditation of bad things, or more simply, negative visualization. I know, that sounds super pessimistic. Why would anyone want to spend time thinking about bad stuff happening? But the Stoics were master psychologists. They knew that it's often not the event itself that hurts us, but the shock of it. When we're caught off guard by a nasty comment or an emotional outburst, our primitive brain, the fight or flight response, takes over. Reason flies out the window, and we just react with fear or anger. We get hijacked by the moment. Premeditatio malorum is the antidote to that shock. It's a mental rehearsal. It's about calmly looking at the worst-case scenarios ahead of time, not to wallow in anxiety, but to strip them of their power. By facing potential problems in the safety of your own mind, you desensitize yourself to them. You make a plan. When the storm actually hits, it's no longer a terrifying surprise. It's just something you've already seen and prepared for. Let's apply this to walking on eggshells. You know you need to have a tough conversation. Maybe you need to tell your partner that their constant jealousy is suffocating you. Or maybe you need to tell your parents that you won't be coming home for a holiday because you need to protect your mental health. Just thinking about these conversations is probably terrifying. The eggshell walker's approach. You put off the conversation for as long as you can. The anxiety just builds and builds. When you finally blurt it out, you sound apologetic and defensive. The other person reacts exactly how you feared they would, with anger, tears, or guilt trips. Because you're unprepared and already stressed out, you get completely overwhelmed. You either back down, okay, you're right, I'll come home, forget I said anything, or you explode in a way you later regret. The cycle continues, and your fear just gets stronger. The Stoics' approach, using premeditatio malorum. Long before the conversation, you sit down and practice this exercise. First, you define the situation. I need to tell my partner that their jealousy is hurting me and our relationship. Next, you visualize the potential negative outcomes. What's the worst that could happen? They could start yelling and call you selfish. They could burst into tears and accuse you of not loving them. They could try to gaslight you. I'm not jealous, you're just too flirty, this is your fault. They could give you the silent treatment for days. In the absolute worst-case scenario, they might threaten to end the relationship. As you picture each of these scenarios, you do two things. One, you remind yourself that you will survive. Even the worst-case scenario, a breakup, is survivable. You'd be hurt, but you would get through it. This thought isn't meant to be dismissive, but to give you perspective. Two, you prepare your response. For each scenario, you ask yourself, how would a calm, strong, and rational person handle this? If they yell, my plan is to stay calm, keep my voice even, and say, I can't continue this conversation if you're yelling. We can talk again when you're calm. If they cry, my plan is to be empathetic but firm. I can say, I can see that you're hurt, and that's not what I want, but it's really important that I'm honest about how I feel. If they gaslight me, my plan is to stand my ground. I understand that's how you see it, but my experience is that this behavior feels like jealousy, and it's hurting me. If they threaten to leave, my plan is to face it without panicking. I would be very sad if that happened, but I can't be in a relationship where I'm not allowed to be honest about my feelings. Do you see the power in this? You've already walked through the fire in your mind. You've armed yourself with a playbook of rational responses. When you finally have the real conversation, you're no longer a deer in the headlights. When their voice starts to rise, your mind doesn't panic. Instead, a calm thought pops up. Ah, this is the yelling I prepared for. I know what to do. You've turned a moment of potential terror into a chance to practice courage and self-control. Their watchtower gave you a heads up. You saw the storm coming, you drew up your game plan, and now you can navigate it with a composure you never thought you had. Their emotional outburst is no longer a weapon against you because you've already disarmed it in your mind. You have your foundation, and your watchtower. Now we need to dig the moat. A moat creates that critical space, a separation between your fortress walls and the outside world. In Stoicism, this moat is the practice of creating space between an event and your judgment about that event. This is maybe the most precise tool for taking apart the whole walking on eggshells experience. Epictetus taught a truth that's the bedrock of modern therapy. People are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Let that sink in. It's not the event itself, the critical comment, the angry outburst, the silent treatment, that causes our pain. It is our interpretation, our story, our judgment about that event that hurts us. When we're walking on eggshells, we're constantly mashing events and negative judgments together. We've lost the ability to see things as they actually are. Let's break it down. An objective, neutral thing that happens, what a video camera would record, the subjective story, meaning, and emotion we stick onto that event. Here are a few examples of how we fuse them. Your mother calls and the first thing she says is, "You haven't called me in a week." She's guilt-tripping me. She thinks I'm a bad son/daughter. I can never make her happy. This story is what makes you feel defensive, guilty, and angry. Your partner slams a cabinet door after you say you're going out with friends. He's furious with me. He's being so passive-aggressive. He's trying to ruin my night. This story is what makes you feel anxious and resentful. The Stoic practice is to consciously pull the event and the judgment apart, to create a mental gap. In that gap, you'll find your freedom. The exercise is to describe the event in the most boring, objective language you can, like a scientist observing something under a microscope. Let's try those examples again with our new Stoic mode. My mother's voice came through the phone and she spoke a sentence about the amount of time since our last call. Pause, breathe, I am just observing this. She's expressing that she wants more contact. Her feeling of disappointment is her own. I can choose to be empathetic to her feeling without accepting the story that I'm a bad child. My worth isn't defined by her interpretation. My partner's hand applied force to a cabinet door, causing it to close quickly and make a loud noise. Pause. Breathe. I am just observing this action. He needs showing he's upset without using words. This is information. His anger is his to manage. I'm not going to accept the story that I'm doing something wrong by seeing my friends. I'll go ahead with my plans, and I can choose to talk to him about it later when we're both calm. I know this might feel a little robotic at first, but it's a mental workout. You're training your brain to stop its automatic negative storytelling. This is especially powerful for dealing with things like gaslighting and constant criticism. A manipulator's main weapon is to make you accept their toxic, subjective judgment as a cold, hard fact. When they say you're too sensitive, they are trying to fuse your emotional reaction with their judgment. The Stoic response is to dig your moat. I am feeling hurt by their words. My feeling is just a feeling. It's a natural response. Their judgment that it's too much is just their opinion, which is external to me and not in my control. I will not accept their judgment as a fact about me. By creating this moat of objectivity, you stop the invasion before it even starts. You see their words and actions for what they are, external events happening outside your fortress. You can observe them, analyze them, and decide how to respond without letting them breach your walls and set your inner peace on fire. You realize that most of what people say and do is just a reflection of their own inner world. It's not about you. By refusing to internalize their judgments, you take back all the power. The foundation is laid, the watchtower is built, the moat is dug. Now we're at the gate of your inner fortress. And you are the gatekeeper. The final, most important piece of your freedom is deciding what you allow to enter your mind and what you do about it. In Stoicism, this power of decision is called assent. Every moment of the day, we get hit with impressions, external events, things people say, our own automatic thoughts. An impression is just a raw piece of information. For example, your boss walks past you without saying good morning. The impression is simply, my boss, walked past me without speaking. But then this impression suggests a judgment. He's mad at me. I must have done something wrong. My job is in jeopardy. This suggested story is what the Stoics called a fantasia. Assent is the act of you, the gatekeeper of your mind, giving your consent to that story. It's the moment you say, yep, that's true. When you assent to the judgment, my job is in jeopardy, you create the feelings of fear and anxiety. But here's the revolutionary idea. You don't have to assent. You can say, no, I do not agree with this. I'm not letting it in. This is the ultimate source of your power. The person walking on eggshells says yes to every negative story someone offers them. The difficult person says, you're useless, and the eggshell walker immediately assents. Yes, it's true, I am useless, and feels the crushing weight of that belief. The Stoic, as the gatekeeper, would stop that impression right at the gate. They'd look at it and say, this is just an opinion spoken by someone who is probably upset. It is not a fact. I refuse to agree to its truth. So, if you say no to a negative, reactive judgment, what do you say yes to instead? The Stoics would say, you say yes to a virtuous response. You choose to act with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. This shifts you from just defending yourself to proactively living by your own character. Let's see how this works. This is your first move at the gate. It's the conscious pause. When someone tries to provoke you, they want an immediate emotional reaction. Temperance is your refusal to give them one. It's the deep breath. It's choosing to respond, not just react. When they throw an insult, temperance is not throwing one back. It's mastering your own impulses. Courage isn't about not feeling fear. It's about doing the right thing even when you're scared. It's the courage to speak your truth calmly, even if your voice shakes. It's the courage to set a boundary and stick to it. For example, I won't be spoken to like that. We can either talk about this respectfully or we can finish this conversation later. That is a profound act of courage. It's choosing your self-respect over the temporary comfort of avoiding a fight. Justice, for a Stoic, means seeing the world clearly and treating others fairly just because they're fellow human beings. This doesn't mean you excuse bad behavior. It means recognizing that the difficult person in your life is also a struggling human, often acting out of their own pain or ignorance. Justice allows you to think, I can have compassion for whatever struggle makes you act this way, but I also have a duty to myself not to let your behavior harm me. Wisdom is the master virtue that guides the other three. It's the ability to know what is and isn't in your control. It's the ability to see things objectively without getting lost in negative stories. It's knowing what's truly good and what's ultimately not a big deal, other people's opinions. Your reputation. Wisdom is what helps you, the gatekeeper, make the right call. It helps you decide when to be courageous and when the wisest action is to just walk away and create distance to protect your own peace. So let's put it all together. Your partner makes a sarcastic, cutting remark about your spending. The old you might immediately assent to the story, they think I'm irresponsible, feel shame and anger, and then either lash out or shut down completely. The new you, the Stoic gatekeeper, you examine the story and refuse to agree with it. You see the event objectively. They made a comment about my purchase with a negative tone. Then, you choose a virtuous response. You might use courage to say, that was a hurtful comment. I'm happy to talk about our budget, but sarcastic jabs don't help. You could use justice to add, I want us to be able to talk about money fairly. All of this is guided by the wisdom that their reaction is theirs, but your response is yours, and you're choosing to make it a good one. You are no longer a passive victim of their moods. You are an active, powerful agent, the calm and steady gatekeeper of your own soul. For way too long, you've lived on high alert, trying to navigate the fragile landscape of someone else's feelings. You've measured your words, shrunk your needs, and sacrificed your peace, all to keep those eggshells from cracking. Today, we've laid out a different path, not a path of learning to tiptoe more carefully, but of learning to walk with a firm, steady step, grounded in your own unshakable strength. Stoicism gives you the blueprints to build that unbreakable inner fortress. We laid the foundation with the dichotomy of control, teaching you to stop wasting energy on things you can't change and focus on the one thing you can, yourself. We built the watchtower with negative visualization, turning fear and shock into strategy and preparation. We dug the moat of objectivity, creating that life-saving space between what happens and the negative stories we tell ourselves about it. And finally, we took our post as the gatekeeper, learning to consciously choose our response, to act with courage and self-control, rather than being a pawn in someone else's emotional game. This fortress isn't a cold wall to keep people out. It's a source of strength and integrity deep inside you. It lets you engage with the world, even with difficult people, not from a place of fear, but from a place of deep inner security. The goal was never to stop caring. The goal was to stop letting your caring nature be used as a weapon against you. You escape the prison of walking on eggshells, not by becoming a better acrobat, but by realizing that your feet can be made of stone, and their shells are just shells. Fragile, and ultimately not your problem to protect. Your responsibility is to your own peace, your own character, and your own freedom. If building your inner fortress is a journey you want to continue, make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell. We explore powerful ideas just like this every single week. And now I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share one situation where you are tired of walking on eggshells. You don't need to give names or personal details, but just by stating the challenge, you are taking the first step. Let's build a community here and support each other on this path. Remember, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength.